Everybody doing today? All right, so not long till this bag is done. So what I'm doing today is stitching in each end of the bag, which has 1/2 of a zip on it. So that's what you're seeing. And it's currently suspended within 2 large rulers, a tabletop clamp with just a little bit of leather in between the 2 rulers just to separate it so this fits in. And then on this side here I have a counterweight to stop it from wanting to fall downwards. So that's what I've got. I do get asked a lot about the clamps that I use and things like that. And to be honest with you, most of the time I'm just making it up. Whatever works is what I'm using. So this is stitching through the reinforcement. Bit of an unusual design. I have done this before in the masterclass with the de Havilland travel bag course. And I design it so that it only requires 1 seam along here for the reinforcement going through the zip tape. And also we've got fabric and the inside or the lining as well. Normally this kind of bag, you'd stitch the zip onto the reinforcement and then you'd stitch the reinforcement onto the bag. And this design kind of bypasses that. That way we only need 1, 1/2 meter of 1/2 meter seam on each side. Otherwise you've got to do that twice, and that's a lot of hand stitching if you're not using a machine. Just going to relax these threads a little bit, developing a touch of twist. Tiago, good afternoon from Portugal. Good afternoon, my friend. How are you? I see YouTube has awarded you a crown with #1 written on it. And oh, I thought we can give you like a badge or something. I got an email the other day saying people that are regular on your lives, you can give them badges and stuff like that. And I just clicked on your name and it said, do you want to report this person? Oh, well. How are you doing in sunny Portugal today? It's quite warm here today. It is, it's 26 degrees. It's not terrible. Not too bad at all. I assume Portugal's a bit higher. It's probably about 24 degrees outside though. This workshop does get hot during the day. Sometimes I avoid it during peak sun. It's either early morning or late evening. Get my admin work done during the hot point of the day. Sweating a lot for 34 degrees Fahrenheit. 34 degrees Celsius, sorry. Alexa, what is 34 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit?
34 degrees Celsius is 93.2 degrees Fahrenheit.
Just over 93. Yeah, it's warm. It is warm. I'm a Celsius guy, but for those listening in who aren't on the metric system, the UK is weird because probably young people would say Celsius and do everything in metric, and the older generation would be like, what does that even mean? What's that in Fahrenheit? Or what's that in old money, as the expression goes? Yeah, it's even Leathercraft can be a challenge when it's really warm. You got sweaty fingers. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put my little fan on. I have a little fan. Get a little bit of a breeze going. Oh, that is actually quite nice. So, as usual, fil chinois. La Câble 432 with a 3.85 millimeter stitch spacing. And one tip I always give people when stitching in zips is you really have to watch your tension. One of the biggest issues with adding too much tension and really pulling on that little stitch is, even though you're actually adding mass between the holes, you think that would make it get longer, but as you're pulling it in, between each stitch gets compressed and it actually shortens over time. So by the time you get to the end, everything has shortened except the zip teeth can't shorten. So you start getting this wave pattern forming, which is, well, you can't get rid of it. There's only one way, which is undo the stitching, hammer it all down, and then stitch again with a fraction of the tension. But you really have to think about it, because if you're not thinking, you just put in the normal amount of tension. But you can usually see it building, like once you get a quarter or a third of the way in, you start seeing the wave forming. You know it's time to undo it and back off the tension a little bit. Almost did a cast then. So what I'm going to do is just move this up here as I'm stitching along. It's now out the way. And I'm having to kind of side saddle this, if you notice. Otherwise I'm kind of like leaning out here, which is a little difficult to do. Well, it's not difficult to do, it just kind of fatigues the shoulders a little bit. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask anything you like. It's just me and you stitching in the workshop, hanging out. And this is the YKK Exceller, is the zip that I'm using here. To be honest, there's not a lot between the Exceller and the Riri. I do get asked about that. What zips do I prefer? I've always wanted to try Lampo and Ricagni, the two Italian makers. YKK obviously being Japanese and Riri being Swiss. Ricagni and Lampo are supposed to be kind of the premier. And one of these days, what I really wanted to do was to get zip tapes from all the major brands that do luxury zips. So Riri, YKK Exceller, Ricagni and Lampo. And then do a bit of a kind of a zip off, if you know what I mean. Kind of seeing which is smoothest, measuring the tension it takes to begin the zip, the noise, the sound, kind of like going through it all. But the issue is it's very difficult to get hold of the exact same size and style of zip in every single brand. Like if I got like I don't think there's one here, but like an 8-inch long piece, silver teeth, in size 6 with a one-way zip and that kind of thing. It's like it's so difficult to get that because one might not do a size 6, it might do only a size 5 before it goes to a size 8, and so on and so forth. And different finishes, metal finishes, like antiqued brass versus silver versus raw brass versus steel, stainless steel, something like that, they can tend to have a little bit of a different feel in them until they're broken in. So you might have one like a aged brass or antique brass and it feels a little rougher than the others, but after a while, once it breaks in, it's the smoothest of the lot. So it's really difficult to get them all in the same finish, in the same size and all that kind of thing to really do a proper review, because I've always wanted to know which is the best. But trying to get reviews of zips, I don't actually think it's ever been done, for luxury zips, that is. And they're always a pain to order because it's most places it's like a minimum 10-meter roll of one color in one size with one teeth finish. And it's a real pain. But yeah, one of these days, we'll have to see. Probably get a bit closer to it actually. I don't know why I'm leaning over. You don't have to use an awl for this, as I explained in the course actually. Once you've glued down your zip tape and reinforcement, you can kind of just go over it again through all the other layers with your pricking iron. So you could do this without using a bladed awl as I'm using here. But if you're using soft leathers on the inside, that kind of tends to heal when you make a hole through it. It's kind of, even though you've pre-pricked everything, it's kind of difficult to see where the hole is on the rear side. So you're going to have to use your right needle to go through to see where the hole is on the rear side and then kind of follow through with your left, assuming you're a right-handed stitcher. But it is quite thick, so if you're going to do that with your pricking iron, you want to make sure that you maintain accuracy. Because even if you're like a degree off one way or the other on the top, it looks a lot different on the rear side. You get like a nice 8 or 10 perfect in a row, and then you see this like long or short stitch onto the next row of 8 or 10 or however many teeth you have in your pricking iron. And remember guys, if you are watching me stitch and you want to see how I do it in a bit more detail in close up, don't forget on my website leathercraftmasterclass.com, you'll see a pop-up where you can get a free video on how I do it. It's just a video of me saddle stitching. I have 2 cameras kind of like this, but like there's one on this side and one on this side, and I'm showing the process with 2 screens at the same time. So you can see the process of saddle stitching in a bit more detail than you would do with me on here, going through the process. It's actually a video taken from the Leathercraft beginner class, which is a series of 9 videos for people who are absolute beginners in leathercraft who want to give it a go. like a short course, really, for those who know absolutely nothing. But I wouldn't recommend it for people that, you know, have some experience. But yeah, that's where the video comes from. Right, I'm going to move this clamp. I'm going to move this clamp forwards over here. So it's a little out the way. You guys can see what I'm doing a little bit better, bringing further forward. It's been a while since I've actually sharpened this awl. Done quite a few seams with it, so I'm just gonna give it a few swipes. Yeah, maybe don't look up and see if there's any comments whilst sharpening. Don't worry, I didn't stick myself. So I'm just kind of alternating a little bit of polish on each side of the tip. This isn't a pointed tip, this is actually, I don't know if you'd ever be able to see that. Oh, maybe you can actually. It's kind of a faceted tip. That's it face onto you. You can kind of see it's rounded on the top. So it slides into the slit created by the pricking iron a little bit easier. I find perfectly pointed awls are generally quite directional. So if you have a wide cut created by the pricking iron, the hole, and you put your awl in top, it will stay in the top, if you know what I mean. And the next one you put in the bottom of the slit cut by the pricking iron, it will stay in that direction. It doesn't want to move from where the tip is piercing through. Whereas when it's rounded, if you put it too low, it kind of slips up into the middle of the hole created by the pricking iron. Basically, it just gives you a little bit more consistency and accuracy on the rear side of your stitches, is where you see the difference most. If you have a very needle point awl, it tends to dictate the direction as it goes through the leather of wherever it started from. So it's not as forgiving, essentially, of minor mistakes. And that's what a rounded or chisel tip awl is really for. I do see some chisel tip awls and the edges are quite sharp, and I don't think that quite works the same, but I haven't used one like that. Go through that again. I'm just going to remove these clamps. What I'm looking for is to see if there's any waviness in the teeth. Obviously, where the clamps have been, it's kind of pressed the teeth down, so I'm just straightening it up. But yeah, looking along there, there's zero waviness along the teeth, which means my tension is good. It does help as well, to be fair, the fact that the reinforcement on this leather here, the reinforcing leather that you see on the front, so just above the ruler, you can see it, the brown leather, that's a strip that goes with the zip tape to cover it up and to give stiffness and structure. I've left that full thickness, which in this case is around 2 millimeters. And that is a thicker leather. It's more difficult to compress, so it's not as unforgiving as if you had thin leather going over your zip tape. That's where you really have to watch your tension, because it's very, very easy to overdo it because the tension accumulates on every single stitch as you go along. And making sure as I'm going through here that my awl, it's a bit tight on that stitch, that my awl is going in horizontal. I'm not just kind of pushing it in that general direction. I'm really kind of putting the blade into the hole, lifting up, and I don't start pushing in till it's supported on the other side and it's perpendicular to the surface. And that way, as I go through, I look along my stitches and they're pretty straight all the way along. If you do a cast though, which gives you a bit more of an angle on each side, it is the more forgiving of the two types of saddle stitch that are most common, which is, casted and uncasted. When you don't cast, like I'm doing here, you have a straight stitch on the rear side, but this is going to be the inside of the bag, so you'd have to kind of like fold it out to see the back side of the seam, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm not doing a cast, but generally speaking, because your stitch is straight, it highlights any inaccuracies or any inconsistencies. So if your rear side stitches aren't as good as you want them to be, casting can hide it a little bit, because it just kind of blurs the imperfections a bit by throwing off the eye with the angles. But generally, if you're not casting, you get more of a decorative angle on the front side, on the face side, most of the time, in most cases. So because the rear side on this is just never going to be seen, I'm maximizing the look by uncasting or not having a cast on my stitches, if you know what I mean. Hopefully that's not too complicated to understand. There's always a compromise. You want the sharpest angles on the front side of your stitch, then don't cast. If you want angles on both sides, then do cast, but neither side is going to have as high an angle as an uncasted stitch on the face side. That is essentially it. So everything's a compromise. So is the rear side going to be seen? No, don't bother about casting it. Are both sides going to be seen? Yes, then perhaps consider adding a cast, which is just looping the thread on the rear side over as I push my needle through. And what that does is it adds an overhand stitch, an overhand knot rather, on the inside of the stitch. It does add some level of protection. If your thread was to wear away, but realistically an overhand knot isn't a very secure knot. So if you're creating something and you're relying on a casted stitch to save the day, if your stitching gets cut or wears out in a certain area, it's not really gonna help that much. It does allow you to tighten your stitches a little bit more. When you stitch and you pull a stitch in tight, not that I'm doing that here, but when you pull it in tight, you'll see the thread pull tight, and then when you release tension, it springs back a little bit. There's a little bit less spring back when you cast a stitch because you have a mild knot in each one. And if you've added beeswax or any kind of wax or code, shoemaker's wax in other words, then that can help as well. But if you're looking to add a lot more tension to your stitches for whatever reason you need to, casting definitely helps. Casting and shoemaker's wax. Called Code, C-O-A-D. It's a mixture of beeswax and pine. Is it pine rosin? No, pine pitch, the black stuff. But you can use rosin if you want it to be blonde versus black. Gives you a good tight stitch and makes your thread virtually waterproof and rot resistant. Don't use it very often. Trunk making, luggage making, that kind of thing works well. Shoemaking, obviously. So coming to the end of the seam here now. We're moving the last part forwards. I just have enough thread. Just. So that was an arm span and a quarter. Should be just enough actually. I might do that again on the other side. For those interested, I'm going to be doing the other side on Instagram. Probably not immediately after this, but in a little bit. Instasham. Yeah, I might actually add a little bit more thread onto the next one. Just to give me a bit more space to work with. Always makes me nervous when I get to the end of a long seam and I'm beginning to doubt, do I have enough thread left? You know, I'm pretty sure that I do, but it's always that nagging feeling in the back of your mind. You're like, oh my goodness, that would be tragic. I'm looking forward to adding the gussets next. And if my measurements are correct, the zip should come together quite nicely. Oops. Yeah, this is going to be tight. Definitely leave it a bit longer on the next seam. Even if it's just to avoid the dirt, which can build up a little bit from the kind of like oils and sweat from the hand and that kind of thing as it's being pulled through multiple layers of dark leather. It does build up what looks like dirt. It's not really dirt, it's just dyes and stuff from the leather. I have enough from there yet. Can I make it to the other side? About a dozen stitches to go and not much thread. Beginning to get a challenge to stitch. Because I totally forgot that as I'm measuring up the thread, well, not measuring, just kind of estimating, I'm not pulling the stitches in tight, and that leaves a lot of thread used up in the holes, because normally when you pull a stitch in tight, it gives you a little bit more thread. But when you're doing it delicately, not so much. Can we do this? It's going to be close. I think we can. Starting to become challenging to stitch. And just got one back stitch on the end to do, and we will be good. Four more. Let's do this. Four more and a back stitch. Two more. And believe in you, little stitch. And we did it. We did it. Just a little bit of thread left. Oh, I haven't done that for a while. Of course it happens on a live. All right. All right, let's take these off. Have a look at what we got. So there we go. So that's the, show you up a little bit closer than that. That's the seam that I just did here. So this is the strip of reinforcing leather, which adds a bit of bulk and thickness to it. On the rear side, you can see the straight stitches going along there. And this is the lining side. So that's what I've been doing. So let's tap these down. You have to excuse the mess. It needs to get tidy up in here at the end of the day. I'm doing that before I go. Let's put my awl away. Actually, where are we there? I just need a dab of PVA glue. Oh god, I just tapped the spout in. We're going to need our little needle. bit of a pain in the hot weather. The little spouts usually clog up quite easily. There we go. There's my awl. A little white glue in there. Work it in and out a few times. Just kind of lock that into place. Good. Once we've done that, we can then give it a good tap down. Tap, 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 tap. Just making sure these are really nice and flat, because we didn't really stitch them tightly, so you want to go over them a couple times just to get them down. That's better. Okay, so one side done. In a little bit, I'm going to be going over onto Instasham to do a live on the other side. So if you guys want to think of anything you want to have a conversation about or have a chat about, ask some questions, then feel free to join me on the IG. All right, guys, thanks for stopping by and saying hello. And don't forget the free video on my website, leathercraftmasterclass.com, if you want to see how I do all my stitching in a little bit more detail compared to today. But yeah, that was one side. Doing the other side now, going on Instagram. So join me over there. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're a fan. Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you later.